Welcome to the Always On podcast. I'm your host, Duncan MacPherson. On this podcast, our objective is to enable our audience, high caliber fee-for-service professionals, to always be working on their business and working on themselves personally and professionally. On today's episode, I had a great conversation with Chris Garcia from Ameriprise in Dallas, Texas. And among other things, we talked about what it looks like to be the advisor of the future. If you like this podcast, please like and share and tell your colleagues. And of course, we would love to hear any feedback. Thanks for listening. Hey, welcome back to Always On. I'm Duncan MacPherson with Pareto Systems. And as you know by now, Always On is dedicated to the financial professionals who personify what it means to be relentlessly innovative, client-centered, ambitious, and balanced. And we are very fortunate to have somebody who just is the embodiment of all that in Chris Garcia from Texas. Chris, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and we've known each other for several years now, and you really do know what it means to work on yourself personally, professionally, work on your business. And everybody listening in can read your bio, get to know you a little bit better behind the scene. But I just right up front, I want to ask, do you remember the eureka moment that you had when you realized that plateau avoidance and self-actualization meant going well beyond just your technical ability and core competency as a financial professional?
I do. And Duncan, it really reminds me of one of my first mentors. He, shared with me is that I've constantly got to be adapting, right? If you're not changing, you're going to get stale, right? And your clients will recognize that. And so that was something that I learned kind of very on and just was self-aware of it and made sure that every ceiling and complexity I hit, I was able to move through that to a point to where, when I met you, I had been introduced to several coaches along the way. And none of them really aligned with what I needed, right? Because back to your point, I had a lot of it put together. I didn't have it buttoned up as well as it should be, and that's where the eureka moment took place. When you and I first sat down, it was only for 15 minutes, but I recognized very quickly that what your program was all about was exactly what I was missing. And as we started, me and my team realized that we had a few things to get right and ready before we could launch. And so it's been an amazing process, really kind of getting everybody involved from the back end to bring it forward. And it's been, I think, 3 or 4 years. And so we've been on launch now for about 18 months through the pandemic even. And that's really where it has was timely in that sense, because it's all about how we articulate our value, to our clients.
Well, and that's a big part. And I want to talk about one of the areas where you achieve professional contrast through branding in a minute. Mm-hmm. But there's no question the last 18 months, starting in 2020 and then to where we are today and beyond, it Darwinian, not in the sense of survival of the fittest, but who can adapt. And right. You've been constantly adapting, and not that it's been dramatic wholesale changes. There have been tweaks and refinements and optimizations along the way. And that is, again, one of those common qualities that separates the best from the rest. But let's talk about professional contrast. So part of our core in terms of branding is ensuring that clients have an equal appreciation for your people, your practice, and your process. So you've got a very deep bench, credentials. They're good at, everyone's really skilled and good at what they do. They like what they do, but you didn't stop there. I really like the story, the origin of the branding of your practice. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I'd actually started this process 6 or 7 years ago and just pushed it to the back burner because I didn't know how we wanted to communicate our brand and our value in the marketplace. And so again, it was after connecting with you guys and one of those things we took a step back on is saying, all right, Now we've got the resource to really help to get this implemented. And, back then I was only a team of 6, and we had not, merged any client or advisors in, haven't bought any practices. And so it was a perfect opportunity. And I didn't want to move in a direction where it was generic in the sense of like a law firm, right? Garcia and other advisor and associates, right? So it was really, taking the time and effort to figure out how do we want to launch? How do we want to rebrand, right? Because I think of, Cadillac for that example, right? They had their old crest and logo, and then all of a sudden they've got this new image, and they've kind of, moved up market, if you will, in their brand. So I needed that same kind of lift. And what we'd found is that I was actually walking through a family office in the Dallas area, and was talking with one of the traders who was an ex employee for another advisor, just kind of seeking, to connect over lunch, right? But I said, I want to come and walk through. I want to see the inside of a family office. And the experience I felt was very similar to our office. And that's where I realized that what we do is we are that family office. We just don't work for one family. We work for hundreds of families. And so in the discovery process around the brand and the name, I had asked for a word that encompasses navigation. And the marketing team that came back, they came back to me with a word of Azimut, Azimuth, which I had never heard. And as I looked it up, it's a 3-dimensional navigational term, right? So if you're a stargazer, it's one of the ways you find an object in the sky. If you're on the ocean, you're finding direction on a 3-dimensional plane. I said, that resonates. We give advice and guidance in a panoramic world. But I did a Google search of that and found hundreds of companies with that name in their title. So I said, but it's not unique enough. I don't want somebody looking us up and finding companies all over the place, right? I don't want to be third on that Google search or on the third page of Google, right? And so we changed that Azimut. We chopped off the muth and made it Azimont to make it a family office name, right? Because the family offices that I've seen, there's a lot of Monts in that name, whether it's Fremont or Rosemont Group, right? And that's where it totally aligned. So we are the Azimont Group. For you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, we are your family office. We are your family practice. And for most of our clients, we work with everybody in the family, up and down a generation line, not to mention the siblings of that same family. So as I tell that story to clients, it resonates. They understand it. And most importantly is that most clients then recognize, wait a second, you don't work for everybody in our family. And it starts to kind of open that idea that maybe they should.
Well, phonetically, it sounds established. It sounds real. It doesn't seem forced or contrived. And obviously you're a serious student about marketing and branding and business development. Branding is about not really speaking to what your value is, but what it does, right? And how that lines up with what someone wants. And being able to backstory the origins of Azimont with a client, it's compelling, it's interesting. And I'm a big fan of the mountain being a symbol of the journey. Climbers of Mount Everest don't hire a Sherpa to get them up, it's to get them back down. Clients achieve financial independence, they plant their flag. It's often anticlimactic. They've still got the rest of their lives to live. The complexities intensify, with the sandwich reality. And it's kind of symbolizes your value, right? So it's navigational, it's directional. But what's really great, you didn't just stop there. You're right. Businesses have to depersonalize the branding of the practice that opens up for scalable growth. But then there's the conversation about the brand within the brand, giving an identity and personality to the process. Okay, so when we work together, I said to you, look, you've got many of the pieces of the puzzle. They're just not put together. Think of bricks and mortar. We came in as the mortar. You had most of the bricks in place, but we just helped you build it together. But a big part of the finishing kick was branding the process, right? As a fee-for-service professional, somebody who thinks for a living, all about the future pacing, branding the process, giving that a name, giving that an identity. I'm really curious in hearing how your clients and how strategic partners have responded to that extension.
Yeah, that was another epiphany that came about, right? And I just had a recent prospect come in, high net worth, and as I told them the story about our centerline formula, I could see the connection that one of the prospects made in their mind, right? They audibly let a out and then sat back in their chair, right? And I think it really connected in their mind. And so where I got the centerline formula was I was again telling a story to the marketing team that helped us to brand this, and I explained how I travel back and forth from where I'm from, San Antonio. I live in Dallas, right? And there's two roads to really take. I-35, which since I've been alive has had construction on it, and it's 3-lane road or 2 going to 3, and the construction slows you down, the traffic slows you down. It's a more stressful drive, right? But there's also a way if you kind of head out Fort Worth and go down through the hill country where there's a 2-lane road. The speed limits are 75 miles an hour. You hit a few towns. It's a much more peaceful drive. The scenery is fantastic driving through the hill country, and I'm at least doing 80, 85, right? But in this drive, what I've recognized over time is that there's a lot of faith and trust that comes on a 2-lane road, right? If I'm traveling southbound and the northbound, traffic is also doing 80, we both put a lot of faith into these 2 lines that are just painted on the road, right? And that's where that connection came. I said, that's exactly what my clients and our families do with me and my team and our process. They put faith and trust in the way that we guide them. Can they get out of their lane? Absolutely. Right. When the markets are down and, especially last year in COVID, one of the first questions we get is, are we about to crash? Well, if we get out of our lane, we will crash. If we do not stay on the road that we're on the path that we're on, follow our guidance, we will get out of this, right? And we will not lose sight, or we won't get off track. But if we make the wrong decisions at the wrong time, right, that's where we will crash. We will severely alter our financial future, right? And that's where that analogy came together. And it's perfect because there's so many different road or travel analogies that can come off of that, but it then resonates right back to family, occupation, recreation, and money. Right. But doing it through that partnership, because again, it's not us that's behind the wheel. That's you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, right? It's not our destination we're headed to. That's your destination. But we're that GPS. We're those lines that are painted on the road for you to help you to get to your destination quickly. Do we want to go down that stressful route of life, down I-35? Or do we want to take that more scenic route through the hill country, enjoying the experience along the way?
Yeah, enjoying the journey, not just the arrival at the destination, right? And right. What's powerful about that, in the spirit of professional contrast, is many well-intentioned financial professionals, they talk about advice, they talk about helping their clients achieve their financial goals. I mean, they're really talking about their intentions, their qualities, and their skills. And there was a time that was enough. Now it's a minimum requirement. Your point about the prospective client, that just, you could see their body language change when you said, look, we've developed and refined a process that puts every piece of the puzzle together, and we call it the centerline formula. It just has an impact. It resonates, and it goes beyond just your intentions. It says, look, there's no mystery here. We've cracked the code, and it's not promissory on performance and rates of return. It's promissory on a client experience. This is what you're buying into, which is incredibly profound. And ultimately, wrapping that, it's proprietary. I can only get it from you. Right. So that brand within a brand is like having the Intel Inside sticker on a computer, right? There's the brand of the practice. There's the brand of the process. Every messenger on your team represents your value consistently with the same messaging. Safe to say?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's, part of the things that you've helped us to develop in that is after a conversation like that, again, with this particular prospect, they have so much going on that I love that puzzle analogy that, I told them, and they were asking for the plan. How quickly can we get the plan? Right. And I said, it's not about a plan. It's about a process. Yes, we'll be able to provide you a plan within 30 days, a proposal. But as soon as we print that off, you and I know it's old, right? The data is outdated, right? And so I explained how the process works and brought it back to the journey, back to that road analogy, right? But I explained it in the sense that, if you guys' life is a jigsaw puzzle, right? And if we turn that box over on the table and 1,000 pieces drop out, now imagine we don't have a picture of what this puzzle is supposed to look like. Right. But there's all these little pieces that we've got to put together. And what you're going to hire me to do is to help you to put these pieces together, but to understand what that picture needs to look like based upon your vision of your destination. Right. And that's how we ended that conversation. I said, I'm sure that you are interviewing other firms. Right. I'll ask you when you've made your decision to give me a call, whether that's to move forward with us or not. I'd like to know. Right. And what was great is that next morning, I had a UPS box delivered with a jigsaw puzzle of my road analogy, right? The centerline formula in the corner, but it's this picture of this beautiful road through the hill country, right? And it's and a handwritten note that said, look, I think we're perfectly aligned to help you guys put your puzzle together. We look forward to working with you. We look forward to hearing back from you. And actually, before they got that puzzle, because we know when it gets delivered, right? They had already called and said, hey, we're moving forward with you guys. So, but again, having that kind of those stories to tell, how to articulate your value through stories that resonate, and then the branding to back that up, and then even all the way down into having the puzzle ready to go, sitting on a shelf to say, hey team, let's put that in the mail. Let's get it on their doorstep tomorrow.
That's great. I love specific examples of not just results, but positive feedback. And I want to come back to the formula for a second, because when you give your process a name and you call it a process, a system, a solution, a method, it's all encompassing, it's panoramic. But the thing about formula, when you say you've got a formula, I mean, it implies it's like a recipe, right? We know how this is going to go. When you say that a plan is important, but it's part of the process, you're activating this sense that, look, the velocity of your life, the trajectory of your life has to be process driven. The plan is important, but you're right. I mean, as life unfolds, needs evolve, the plan can become obsolete. We can update it, but the process encompasses everything we do. And then helping a client understand that there's parts of the process that aren't relevant to them yet.
Right.
But we're so far in front of their evolving needs. So clients continue to respond favorably. When you meet with a prospective client and you try to activate that contrast where they compare and contrast you to their soon-to-be former advisor or anybody else that they're vetting, how have they been responding to the centerline formula?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this particular story I'm talking about that was just a few weeks ago. The origin of that is as a magazine that I advertise in. That's just a kind of a neighborhood magazine. So I don't know them, right? They don't know any of my clients, right? So it's somebody brand new to us. Most of the families we sit down with are coming from advocates, right? Other families, right? That already work with us and have been working with us for a long time. And so again, they've known me before the brand was launched, right? And so now they've got a way to articulate to their friends, families, and coworkers even that on how we work with them, and it gives them the tools to describe us so that when they come in, it's not a sales pitch, right? It's more of, this is how we're going to start the process, right? This is what you can expect. This is the team, right? And this is where we'll be in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then beyond, right? And so it's interesting when I have these clients that come in where it is. I've got to be on, right, always on, right, for those that don't know the brand already and don't have that familiarity, right, through an advocate. So that's an interesting learning, and honestly, we're getting a lot more of those call-ins, right? People calling in on the website. I had somebody call in that was a referral, and then by the end of the meeting, they said, how do you know so-and-so? And I said, I'm asking you the same question. I don't know the person that has referred you. They don't work with us, right? So it's now like, how did we connect with each other? And they wanted to go back to them, and they asked for a client of mine that they could talk to get a testimonial from. And I found somebody that works at their company. But my point there is that it's interesting as we're starting to get to that level of people doing the work for us and bringing us people, even if it's not somebody that's currently connected with us. It's interesting how those conversations are different from someone who doesn't know us compared to somebody that's coming from a recommendation of a client.
Well, and the beauty of them being predisposed in advance of meeting you is never do you need to feel compelled to try to convince them to become a client.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They want to believe, they've heard good things or they've read good things. They've done some initial due diligence about you in advance, and they're just looking for validation. And, they want to come to their own conclusions. Have you ever had somebody during your initial meeting as part of your fit process interrupt you and say, you know what, Chris, I've heard enough. I just want to get started?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that has happened. And says, you know what do we need to do? Like we're ready. And I've had it happen at the beginning of the meeting. Right. And of course, the starting point is really just give more of my background. But as soon as we start getting in the process, they're telling me, hey, you don't even have to go through the rest of this. We're ready to go. Right. And it's an amazing experience.
Well, in business, the law of attraction basically means you're not trying to convince them. They're trying to convince you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll try to close you, say, look, I just want to get started. What do we need to do? It's a very, very powerful validator. One thing that's common with the proverbial 25-year overnight success story is that a lot of people on the outside assume that it's all been easy, friction-free. Have you had some adversity you've had to deal with and overcome?
Absolutely. Markets are challenging, right? I've been through 2, major recessions. I even got my start prior as an advisor through the .com bubble, and so learning how to navigate that is certainly a challenge, and that's something we all deal with. There's been, staff issues, finding the right people, right? Those can be challenges as well. And I kind of say this as, when I got my start, I was seeing people around me having those really quick successes. And I never had one of those quick successes, right? And I actually look back to that to say, I'm glad I never got those quick successes so that I would step back and kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Because it's almost that the momentum stops, right? And that's one of the things that I learned is that I cannot ever let the momentum, let off that gas pedal, right? Because in this business, you're either growing or you're dying. You're never staying the same, right? But that's what's allowed me to make it through any of those challenges that I've ever had, is making sure that the momentum is always there. Right. And to me, the momentum, because I don't do much from a marketing standpoint, it's really service to clients, right? Is what are we doing through challenging times in the markets to be proactive, right? We need to be reaching out before our clients are reaching in, with concerns or questions, right? And that's really the momentum that keeps, I think, this operation headed in the right direction.
That's a great mindset. And you're right. I mean, it's generally brokers that are the shooting stars, right? They come out of the gates somewhat misleading though, because again, they're not really building anything. They're transacting. There's a fixation on products and pricing and performance. And it's the consultants that are the steady burner, and the incrementalism, right? Those force multipliers start to really combine. And what I'm really interested in talking about, because you mentioned the family office, the multifamily office. So your business to client model as a proof of concept, it's all completely documented. Nothing resides in the heads of your team members. Everything's completely process driven. The rule of three has been embraced fully and completely. Give me an example of a prospective client that has reacted or said something to you where it just goes so far beyond the fact that, look, I trust you. I mean, where they really zero in on the things that make you different.
Yeah, that's a good question. From a prospective client, right? I'd have to be this one most recently. I just kind of told the story on where I could see the that concept being recognized in their mind, where it's kind of it's almost like they were leaning forward, right? And as soon as it connected, they kind of pulled back in their seat, right? They dropped their guard a little bit, right? They say, you know what, we are in the right place, right? And even I've had a client who just, recently retired, and he shared a story with me that, from our first meeting, right, which would have been, back in 2006 or 8, somewhere around that time frame. But he, shared with me, what I had told him then. And now this would have been completely unvarnished back then, but he said, it's a process of we're gonna get you to retirement, right? And he was a long ways out. And as we've gotten to that summit, right, there's been some health challenges in his life that's brought him to the decision. But he told me that he at some points doubted it through our relationship, but stuck with the process, and he's incredibly excited that he did, because he's there, right? And we know, and he knows that he's going to be in a good position for the rest of his life. Right. More importantly, it's his wife that he's most concerned about. Right. He wants to make sure that it's not just, it's their lives, right. That the money that they've amassed will support them, through their longevity, through their retirement.
So they're mirroring it back on you, in terms of actually validating back the fact that they feel a sense of zen because of the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's where, and I told him, I said, back to the summit analogy, right? As I use it, I say, we've only gotten to the peak, right? We've got another 30 years to go into retirement. And so this process has only just really started, right? But I feel confident based on the things that we've worked on, right? And there's, it's helping you guys to save. It's helping you guys to, stay the course through thick and thin, through 2 major recessions. And, to the point to where we're now at a point where we're going to have a low withdrawal rate, and how much, articulating how that, creates a probability of success that is extremely high, right? Because we're going to go through ups and downs over the next 30 years, but you guys can retire with confidence, right? Especially because he's retiring based on a health condition, right? And so, it's taking that weight off, right? And that's kind of what he shared with me, is that, the stress around just life in general is tough, but, the financial stress is not. And this unique story, right? He kind of shared with me, he was in, I believe, the Korean War, and that's where he met his wife, was overseas. He was telling me a story how, back when they were dating, he was in San Diego, on base, but he'd gotten to a point where he rented like an RV trailer, and they lived in this trailer while he was still, in active duty, and they would put their money in a shoebox, and it was about $50 a week that they had to manage, right? That's what they lived on, right? And they would come back to the shoebox and they would keep filling it up. And he expressed that analogy to me, is that that's where they started, and where they are today, that shoebox is full. In fact, there are several shoeboxes full, right? And so, but just understanding that mentality, that mindset of where somebody, from the start, right, remembers that conversation vividly, which was, 14 years ago, to where we are today, right? And that's kind of where I get that renewed sense of faith of what we're doing, right? We're doing the right thing. And back then I wasn't as polished as I am today, right? And so now being able to, articulate that value through branding, through stories, right, that really resonates, and allowing the clients to be our advocates and introduce us to new families that, because everybody's looking for that type of confidence, right? But they know how to describe it because they've lived it, right? And that's where, these new prospects that are coming in now from, random places, right, is our process is built to turn these folks into advocates, right? And again, that's where that momentum, I've never let that go.
I love the humility that comes from first generation self-made affluence, right? They never take anything for granted. They've got a really vivid memory about some of the adversity that they had to deal with. They tend to be pretty frugal. And, once they hit their stride, they have a confidence that, okay, this has all been achieved on merit. Sometimes you see some arrogance in found money as opposed to earned money, right? And that's a big part of the role of a financial professional in dealing with the dynastic elements when money goes into motion and changes hand from first generation earned to second generation found. So that's great validation. Now let's pivot a little bit. So on a business to client model, you had the real eureka moment around, look, I don't just manage money. I manage a business that creates a client experience, and I manage clients in terms of their expectations, their sense of anticipation, their loyalty, making sure they're bought into the process, and of course, advocacy. And because it's all documented as a proof of concept, I want to talk about how you've taken that intellectual property and been able to put it in the hands of somebody else. Okay, so let's first of all talk about a business that you have acquired. Okay, what problem did you solve? What unmet need did you help them really understand that you could address? And what kind of impact did it have on the advisor's life when they agreed, okay, I'm going to entrust Chris and his team at Azimont with my clients, with my business? Let's have that conversation.
Yeah. So first thing is, nothing was broken, right? And of course, that's not what anybody's looking to do when they, look to draft in or partner in or merge in with another advisor. But it's understanding, strengths and weaknesses. And of course, that's what we're looking for as well, right? I'm constantly looking to adapt. I don't do everything 100%, the best way, the most efficient way. But in some of these acquisitions, that's where we have created the playbook to be able to run as efficiently as possible. And so that's part of where that drafting comes in, is that we're able to take years of development, right, and refining our process so that they can plug in and it's immediate, right? They don't have to spin their wheels kind of doing that step back that we did. Right. And that's where, again, even for an advisor, that's where there's almost a sigh of relief, is now I can plug myself into that and my team, most importantly. Right. Because again, finding the right folks is a constant battle. Right. And then training is as well. right? And so that's what we've created in our playbook, is to make it easy, make that rule of three. If we're going to, do this 3 times, or if we're going to hire in 3 people, we better have this to where it's replicated to where those new team members can plug directly in, even if it's someone we're hiring or if it's an advisor that's drafting in behind us.
Do you have a preference between acquiring a business where the advisor is going to ride off into the sunset sooner or later, or do you prefer somebody who drafts in behind your process and you liberate them to basically find another gear themselves from fulfillment and liberation? Do you have a preference there?
I really don't. We're doing both at the same time, right? So we've got an advisor that is looking to retire in 3 to 5 years, and then one who's maybe just a little bit older than me that just recognizes the traction that we've got, that's looking to draft in. And so I don't really kind of look at one's better than the other, and just recognizing kind of the landscape is, we need to be in a position to kind of offer both. Somebody that is looking to kind of take that step back and really enjoy their last, 5 years of their career, right? Take more of the lifestyle on, right? Get out of that, CEO role, right? And enjoy it. And at the same time, it's, that's where there's a really good handoff, right? Is being able to introduce a new process, a new system, right? And, and that's part of where, in that type of a scenario, since I've developed it, and it is that team approach, the focus is to depersonalize. So depersonalize for that advisor that is looking to leave, but not personalize them over to me, right? Because again, I've got so much capacity, but really, sharing with them or helping them to realize that this is going to be a team that's going to be taking over as that advisor eventually retires, right? And so, so that's kind of where that's one piece of it. And then of course, for another advisor, getting that far ahead down the line to kind of see how they can increase productivity by removing some of the barriers around training and organization, implementation of the process, and really just getting out to a prospecting level, knowing that they're back, right? And their own team and our team, right, is there to support them to really become a rainmaker, right? And so, both of those are important to us.
How important was it to have an advisor fit process? So when you started to connect with an advisor who said, you know what, I'm thinking that I might want to align with Azimont, and really approaching that as if you were meeting with a prospective client, like the same type of mindset that this is not a sales encounter, this is a fit process. Let's see if our interests are aligned. And then framing it around, okay, is there a philosophical fit? Do we see the world the same way? Is it a strategic fit, meaning the clients are going to be elevated? It's not you selling your clients to me. This is about helping a clients appreciate a deeper experience. And then the practical being, this is a meaningful liquidity event where everybody benefits. I mean, how meaningful has that been as opposed to just buying a business?
Yeah, we have had several meetings with teams from other firms outside of ours, right? Inside as well. And so I think that's crucial, right? Because we can't be all things to everybody, even in our practice in the service we serve or the service we give to clients, but even in advisors, right? Is we need to have the right advisor that is aligned, right? That has the same beliefs, that believes in planning, that believes in wealth management, the way that we do, right? And so yeah, I think it's crucial. There are advisors that we've had to turn away just because there isn't an alignment. So yeah, we are looking for those that are share those same philosophies, share those same core beliefs. And I really think it all comes back to service and experience, right? Can you deliver an experience? And again, as we elevate the way that you deliver that experience, right, is it going to be received as well as it has been within our practice?
Now, we've had a conversation in the past where you shared with me a story about an advisor competitive advisor where you had to sort of break it to him that you were going to be onboarding a client of his, and what he revealed to you was quite fascinating, a great validation of your professional contrast. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, this is a good story. I mean, it was one that really kind of, I took a step back and I brought this to our team. I had to share it with them. It was a client that we had picked up probably about 4 years ago. And she had been referred to somebody at one of the top leading firms out there, right? And what's interesting is that in the way that the client positioned it with me is that we're going to have a horse race with my team and this other firm, right? And we will see where we are in the future. There was no set metrics, there was no set timeframes, but 4 years had gone by, and there was a very noticeable difference in the balances. And the unique thing here is that we got the same amount of money, my team and the other, on the same days, right? Same amount, same day. So it's kind of like, it was a true horse race, right? Where we're going to see where we're at. Neither one of us had an advantage in any way. And what really started the conversation is to say that, one, let's look at consolidating, because there's a noticeable difference. Now, if it was a minuscule difference, there wouldn't be a need for me to say, hey, we need to pull your money over. But because it was so vastly different, I said, look, we can't allow you to keep your money there because you're not keeping pace with the markets or with your money here. But that wasn't what brought it over. That wasn't what helped this woman to make her decision to go ahead and end the relationship with that other firm. What it was is she told me, she says, as I call that team, I have to leave a voice message, and it's a day or two or a week before they'll contact me back, but I never get them on the phone. In fact, I've actually asked your team to call that team to let them know that I need to contact them, right? And that communication just wasn't there, right? And that's about the extent that I kind of knew. I've had a conversation with the other team, the gentleman there, a couple of times over the 4-year period. But when she made this decision, she said, Chris, I want you to call Joe. I want you to tell him that I'm going to be leaving and consolidating with you. And as Joe called me back after I left him a message, he told me, he says, Chris, I kind of expected this. We're not equipped to deliver the level of experience or service that you guys can. And that's where I kind of just stopped my tracks. I said, that's where in my mind, I go immediately to the marketplace, and I'm talking commercial ads, right, on television. And this firm is got one of the leading ads out there that is, explaining to the marketplace how their process of service and planning is the way to go, right? And the reality of it is it isn't, right? Because this advisor is telling me we can't deliver on that, and we can't even answer the phone, right? And that's where I told my team, I said, that's why it is so important for us to, if it's within business hours, a call does not go to voicemail, it gets answered, right? We have plenty of people on the team that if I'm not in the meeting, one of our associate advisors can speak to that client, and the client knows that we're there for them, right, when they call in, right? And coming back to the way that this firm's positioning themselves in the marketplace, right? I said, this is where we've got to continue to create our professional contrast, because our clients are being bombarded with ads, right? Whether it's TV, their cell phones, their own bank, right, is trying to get them to become a client, right? Everybody says they do financial planning, but nobody does it in the way that we do, right? And that was powerful in the sense that it's kind of a true validation, because I've got the competition telling me that they can't do what we do.
Can't or won't. And maybe like that statement, right? We can't do that. Boy, the overpromise, underdeliver is amping up, I think, to another level. And I think the marketplace is becoming pretty savvy about sniffing that out. But I love that story, such powerful validation. And this is what's exciting, because we talk continually about decommoditizing one's value so that clients focus on what you're worth, not what you cost. we talk about depersonalizing, and we talk about demystifying. Now, of course, 2020 and 2021 have manufactured an awakening, I might say, because there are several advisors as we come out of this that are looking down the road at the next 3, 5, 10 years of their life. And they're saying, you know what? I got to simplify. I got to get out of the minutia and I got to tune out the noise. I want my business to serve my life, not the other way around. And I say that because I'm talking to a lot of advisors that they're on a collision course with a plateau. They're cresting. So they've been doing this for a while. They've got a great business. Some of them even admit to me, look, I'm making more money than I ever thought. But I know this isn't sustainable. And it prompts me to ask them the question. I say, okay, what do you manage? What do you manage? And they say, I manage money. And I say, no, that's commoditized. It's not proprietary. You manage a business and you manage people and you manage time. But ultimately, when it comes to time, what you really have to focus on is how you allocate that time. Mm-hmm. And here's what's fascinating. A typical advisor works 45 hours a week, 15 hours in asset management, 15 hours on practice management, 15 hours on relationship management. And I say to them, why don't you outsource the asset management? Get out of the asset management business. You've been doing this for 20 years. You've cobbled together 300 households, 900 holdings. You're doing your clients a disservice by sticking with the status quo. The way you manage money is not better. It's not yours. It's not proprietary. So the B2B dynamic that somebody could consider is, what does it look like for that advisor if they were to outsource asset management to you and your models and your platforms and your process, and then you in turn gave them your way, your proprietary way to managing their enterprise and amplifying their enterprise value, and to managing their clients to insulate them from competitive factors, capture money in motion, and attract a higher quality and quantity of referrals. I mean, you're capable of that. What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of it is just being aware and recognizing that, I needed to build that process. And to build that process, I needed the education, right? So I went and got a degree or a certification in asset allocation, right? And through that, I really created my own, philosophy or technique, if you will, of how to manage asset allocation, right? Because asset allocation in turn, you can't manage for returns, right? But you can manage, beta and alpha, standard deviation. Those are those things that you can control. And if we focus on those things that we can control, over time, it will produce the results that we need, right? But understanding that is, I needed to have a process built that's going to allow me to create that performance that's going to stand up in the marketplace, right? And going back to getting that education was crucial and key, right? So that within Ameriprise, we've launched the discretionary platform. And so that's what's allowed this to kind of take another step forward. Now that discretionary platform was launched back in 2011. So I'm hitting my 10th year in that program. And that's where it has allowed us to take that commoditized portion of the industry and really kind of put it aside in the sense that we've got a process built around it so that, we know how to deliver advice and guidance around wealth management.
Well, back to your story, the horse race story. Obviously, the performance was distinctly different. Mm-hmm. But that's not necessarily what tipped her over. It was the fact that, yes, you've got the goods, but it's also the client experience combined.
Right.
So your technical ability, you take that very seriously, but you've made that process driven. Like the art and science of the advisor of the future is, I've got the technical ability, I just don't stop there. I focus on what's proprietary. I run my business like a business. And what I like to say to anybody who will listen is, look, every investment of effort you make on your business, you are slamming money in the bank. It's like forced savings. Pay yourself first by driving your enterprise value. So if I'm an advisor and I'm looking down the road and I'm saying, oh, look, I want to get out in front of any plateau. I want to rejuvenate myself. Basically, what you're saying is not only could I adopt your process around asset management and all of those dynamics, I could also adopt the Azimont way and the centerline formula and rejuvenate my clients, create more advocacy, and drive my enterprise value.
Absolutely. And a lot of it then from a conversational piece with clients isn't around performance, nor do they question it, even though, again, we don't perform at the top every quarter or every month. It's not a question because our clients know that the process is there that's going to deliver the results that they need to stay on track, right? And it allows the conversation then to shift into more of what their true concerns are, right? And what I think most clients are concerned with is what they'll hear on, the nightly news, right? Inflation, taxes, right? What is that going to do to the landscape, the economy and the financial markets over time? And letting them know that we've got a process built to handle that, right? Where the portfolio design is strong to weather through those storms. Again, it comes back to that centerline approach, right? That's where we've got that process in place that we just need to stay disciplined to it. And again, that's what we're doing behind the scenes is making the adjustments on those things that we can control, whether it's beta or standard deviation to adjust the alpha, right? And really educating clients on what those things are, right? I'll tell you, as we kind of spend our time in the modern portfolio theory statistics with clients and comparing that with other firms, it's only been within the last year or so that I've seen a portfolio that lines up in terms of alpha, based on the beta and with what we do, right? And I told this client, I said, this is where you are is a good spot, right? And so, whether you want to bring money over here and consolidate, because again, it was another kind of where they've got money here and they've got money there. I told him, I said, it doesn't matter, right? Because I can tell you that you're in good hands there as you are here, right? Now, again, that client decided to consolidate because, again, I think it comes back to service. But that's kind of, I think, the point that you're making, Duncan, is that as you put the right process around wealth management to not spend time on it, right? And I'll share with you that over the last 5 years, we've had a major shift in technology around being able to run a discretionary portfolio. It would take me 6 hours to run a rebalance, right? Which is basically all day. To now, we've got that built within our team and on multiple advisors, of course, right? To be able to do trading in about 20 minutes. And so if we're going to run a major rebalance, maybe it takes us about 30 minutes. So even us, we've got that down to where it doesn't take much time out of the week in that in the friction, if you will, of just trading accounts, to where we can spend more time on the allocation, the philosophy behind what we're doing, and do we need to make adjustments there?
Well, that's just it. I mean, the quantitative clients are going to take a look. It matters. Mm-hmm. But the qualitative is how they feel. And your process, the centerline formula, acts, it's like noise canceling headphones. They can tune out the noise and focus on what matters to them vis-a-vis form, and focus on what can be controlled. And ultimately, it's like a mid-course correction. Okay, we'll make adjustments, but they're connected to your people, your practice, and your process. That's a profound insulator from all the noise, because obviously that velocity is picked up dramatically. Okay, so if you're an advisor listening in and you want to work on your business, work on yourself personally and professionally, and I'm assuming you're the consummate planner, planning your own future, I would encourage you to have a conversation with Chris. If you're thinking about, okay, maybe I want to sell my business down the road, have a conversation with Chris. If you're thinking you want to minimize hassle factor, get out of the minutia, and adopt his process to liberate yourself, have a conversation with Chris. We'll provide all the contact details. And a great way to test the waters is take a look at his models. And maybe if you get out of the wealth management business and go deeper into what's proprietary, your business, your clients, you'll find another gear in productivity. You'll drive your enterprise value. Chris, I mean, most financial advisors you interact with, their business is probably their most significant asset, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's drive that multiplier further. So, Chris, I just want to thank you very much for your time, for your insight. I know we're going to do this again. Any books that you've read that really had a profound impact?
Yeah, most recently, reality-based leadership was very insightful, and just one for an understanding for me, but even in leading others, right, is helping to identify what reality is, what your own story is, and that's kind of what the first part of that book is all about. And so reality-based leadership, I would say, is a good one. Not only for yourself, but in leading your team, leading your clients, even. And then I've got Traction on my desk that just arrived there this week. So that's the next one that I'm going to be picking up.
It was about 26 or 27 years ago, I think, where I saw Norman Schwarzkopf speak in Dallas, Texas. And he said, when it comes to leadership, people always follow character first, strategy second. And I've known you for a long time. I know you are an equal combination of both. And that's why you're enjoying all of your success. And your team is incredible. And your clients are in very good hands. So I just want to say thank you very much. I'm looking forward to doing this again. But in the meantime, I appreciate you making the time for us.
Sure. Thanks to you, Duncan.
Awesome.